Hi, this is Chris Griffiths, and in this section we're going to talk about customizing the MLS. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the admin drop down and we're going to go to your preferences. There's lots of things you can do to make the MLS work your way. So if there's something that just doesn't work right for you, come here and make a change. We already talked about the 24-hour market watch areas here. We're going to talk about some of the other things in here. First of all, the first option, you'll see the options pane. You can either have it expanded or collapsed. I would strongly suggest leaving it as collapsed. It's an extremely useful tool, but we don't use it all of the time. And real estate, as we all know, is valuable. That's just as true on your desktop as it is out in the real world. So leave it collapsed and we'll open it when we need it. Let's come down to the listing input defaults. I would strongly suggest that you choose Los Angeles County as your default. It doesn't mean that you cannot take listings in other counties. It just means that on those rare occasions when you do, you will just change that one field. But since most of your listings are going to be in LA County, it means that the tax data will be automatically brought in when you go to input a listing. And we're going to have a module on that in a little while. Since we're going to take listings in more than one city or area, we're going to leave those unchecked. Let's come down to the searching defaults. These are very important. The one-line grid. Now there are some very special features in the one-line grid that make this what I would suggest should be your default. We're going to cover this in more detail in a minute and we'll look at how to customize grids. But my advice, leave that as the one-line grid. Sort as selected. This is an option for sorting listings in a list, and I would strongly suggest leaving it as checked. You can uncheck it here and then recheck it in the options pane if you want, but my advice, just leave it checked. The sort increment. If you have a number of 1 here, please make sure you change it to 10. What that means is that you'll have 9 slots in between each listing where you can move other listings, and again you'll see that in more detail in another segment. Automatically check all search results. This is a matter of personal preference. My personal experience is that I like to start with everything checked and then just uncheck the ones I don't want. If you like to do it the other way around, by all means change it, but that's how I personally use it. Now the sort by, you can sort by 3 different criterias, and there are lots of choices here. You'll see them all in the drop down. My personal preference is sort by status and by price and then by blank. Now blank is always going to be the top of every list. So if you ever want to put a blank into a list, just go to the top of the list. I would ignore the search counties. The system does a great job of searching. Counties are really not relevant in my experience, so I wouldn't put anything in there. The default size measurement. The system thinks we want to search by acres. In our area that's ridiculous, so just make sure you have square feet here. And I would suggest that you only have one property type checked. The importance of this is that the subtypes are going to be automatically brought in for you for the type that you have checked. So if you're a specialist, for example, in leases or residential income, by all means have that checked as your specialty. But if you only have one, it will bring in those subtypes automatically for you, and we'll see that when we go to input a listing. Now the email defaults, these again are very important. My experience is that clients want to see less details, more pictures, so I would suggest client summary with additional pics, but you'll see that there are other choices that you can use. Very important here to put a default subject in. Basically this stops you accidentally sending out a message with no subject line. Most spam filters will throw you in spam if you do that, so you don't want to do that. I would use something generic like listings from whatever your name is. Entirely up to you, but just have something in here. Send blind copy. Now the system is going to keep the emails you send. So personally I don't check this, but if you want to get a copy of every email, by all means please check it. The system is also going to put in a signature for you. So it's going to include your name, your company, even your license number and that sort of thing, phone number, email, all that good stuff. So you don't need to put that in here. But here you can put in other things. So for example, you see I've put in visit my blog, I've put in some social media icons. I cover that, how to do that in class 3. It's not altogether obvious, but you don't need to put a signature in here because the system, as I say, is going to do a signature. The auto prospecting, we're going to leave the defaults. The hot sheet, my opinion on the hot sheet is that the days back is the most useful. So personally I would check days back. and then have the number 7. We'll talk more about hot sheets in another segment. PDA defaults, I leave the defaults. The map, now you can absolutely customize the map. In other words, you can have it zoomed into a specific area. As you'll see when we get to the mapping segment, it's so easy to zoom in that my advice would just be to leave the system default, which basically gives a good large view of the area. And the last change I would make, unless you work purely in the sort of built-up area of downtown, I would change this from 1/4 to 1/2. As I say, the default is 1/4, but I would make it 1/2. Very, very important. You must come up to the top left and click Save. If you do not, you will lose everything you just did. So make sure the last step, come up here to top left, click Save, you'll see you get a little message, and then we'll go back to the home page, and that's the end of this section. Thank you.